And I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous people of all the lands that we're on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. And we do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and improving our own understanding of local Indigenous people and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nation people that call this land home. Now, Trudy Raymond is a senior financial advisor who proudly serves the Durham and Clarington communities. She also does do clients in Toronto and the GTA, and she grew up as the eldest and only daughter with a West Indian background, which instilled strong family values and acted as her ember to empower women and inspire confidence for hardworking people to build and preserve wealth through education. She's proud to say she loves spending time with her family, her husband, her dog, and cat. There's something about Go Leafs Go, which you can debate with her later, but we do share one of her favorite quotes, knowledge is power, and she's excited to share all her knowledge with us today. Hello, Trudy.
Hello. Am I unmuted, muted? Good, we're good.
You're unmuted, you're muted. I just want to remind everybody that didn't hear me before, the estate planning guide is in the chat there. So if you do want to download it, I also put it in the email today. So if you want to get it there as well. Okay, take it off, Trudy.
Thank you.
Take it off. Take it off.
Take it off. It's okay. I am not going to take it off today, but I'm not going to see
take it away is what I
take it away. I love it. So welcome everyone. If you've come back the second time around, I guess I did something right. So I'm glad that you got some value to it. For the new ones on the call, thank you for joining. Let me just preface by saying I am not a lawyer. In terms of taxes, I do not prepare wills, but I do, because I work so closely and specialize in the estate planning world, I have a strong knowledge of specific laws, implications, and then my generalization in that law, in like specific laws, I then go to my team of lawyers who I use and refer clients to all the time. So I'll do my best to, like last week, do my best to answer any questions I can from a general level, and anything that I think might require more specific information. I'll either suggest that you go see a lawyer or your lawyer, or I can do some research in the background and get back to you offline. So today I wanted to do a little bit different. I wanted to have some application for today. So if everyone's able to gather that working document, wonderful. Happy to send it out again if anybody needs it later on. But so for today, we're going to proceed as, oh my goodness, I've got a flood of knowledge going on here. So apologies, I'm fumbling on my words. Today's discussion.
Can I just ask an administrative question? Marie says that she in the planner she puts a date and amount and then they disappear, or they put it on different lines. So do you suggest people download it and then open it up in Word or something?
100%, yes. Okay. Or they just save it to their computer, close the attachment, and then reopen it, and you should be able to type it in. We'll do it together.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Actually, Jen, I don't see it. Where is it?
The planner?
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat and I don't see it at all.
Okay, I'll put it in again. It could be that the chat, it's gone too far in the chat.
Thank you.
Put it in again.
So today's discussion and objectives. So last week we looked at, where do we start? Why does this matter? There's so many things to consider. How are you going to do it all? And then what makes the most sense for me? And incorporating that into the 3 pillars of this estate planning process. Pretty much it's the communication, consideration, and then planning. So right now, I've highlighted the where do we start, and I have so many things to consider because that's what we're going to focus on today. And we're right now, for those who are good at compartmentalizing, we're on the communicate and the consider pillars right now. The plan is executed based on the communication and consideration. So the agenda today, I wanted to take some time. I thought it would be beneficial to you guys to provide you with additional information on some of the questions that were coming up repeatedly last week. And then from there, we'll get started on the workbook. And then as per usual, we'll have the question and answers afterwards. I'm going to hit the slide button. Don't get intimidated by all of the words. I wanted to pull the legal terms and the actual parts of the act. So this is a lot of writing. I don't expect you to take it all in, but what this is there was a question last week of, I am separated from my partner, but does that mean the will that I have, will that impact any property that I own? Is that separated spouse entitled to my property and vice versa? So prior to 2022 is a different situation. As of January 2022, I highlighted some areas. So testator, the word testator in layman's terms, meaning you, the person who's creating the will. And if you're separated from your partner, any gifts or appointments in favor, I'm just reading the highlighted area there, of the divorced spouse is considered revoked at the date of divorce. So notice that it says divorce. That means that if you have a will and you are separated from your spouse, it's revoked. So anything that was in that will previously will not allow them to attain any assets, okay? Further down to that, it means that you also have to have a valid separation agreement, some sort of a draft. And sorry, I jumped there. They live separate and apart as a result of the dissolution of the marriage for a period of at least 3 years. So I wanted to give a little bit of food for thought. I will provide this presentation to Jen so that she can send it out appropriate or upload, however that is, so that you have that in your toolbox for future reference. Any questions? I don't think there would be any questions on that. Good. Okay. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay. The next part is kind of 2 sections. Again, please don't, the verbiage is not so much I wanted to be focusing on. It's if your personal representative, i.e. estate trustee, i.e. executor, is out of province, if they're in BC or out of the country, I wanted to pull 2 snippets as sort of a follow-up action. So the change in province of territory. So if a will is written in one province, so let's say you were in BC and the will was written there, it is still valid if you move to Ontario. And I'm just paraphrasing what it's saying here. However, it is recommended that you, as the person who's helping to create and establish this will, review it, because there are certain, and in this situation in Quebec, we know Quebec has different, a lot of the times has different laws, but for the most part, it's drafted from a civil code perspective, as opposed to, in this case, where the example is common law. So there's always some ambiguities. There might be slight differences in the actual written law itself. So just be mindful of that. Now, the next part of that is, if you're, to the flip side, if your estate trustee or personal representative is outside of where you are, i.e. in the States, let's use that as an example. I believe there was someone who had their son living in Arizona, I believe. Anywho, there's tax implications. So I just want to highlight, in Canada, a trust estate is a resident for tax purposes where its management and control rests where the executor resides. So that means they're subject to additional tax laws if it's, for example, the US. So if a testator appoints a US resident or as a personal representative that lives in there, so a US resident, that means that the personal, yes, will have signing authority, but then there's also different sets of filings that must be done because that executor, estate trustee, resides in the US. So it's an important consideration to make. While it's not illegal to have it that way, because we all have life, it takes us in different directions. It's definitely something that merits a subsequent conversation with your lawyer, saying, hey, Mrs. Smith, my son is the executor of the estate. I really don't have anybody here in Ontario, but he resides in Arizona. How can we, what needs to be outlined to make it a more manageable process for him? And then have that stipulation. Then there's also the basic stuff, which I do feel that a lot of the times we forget. It's from a convenience and efficiency perspective. So when that time comes for me to pass, if my brother lives in BC, let's say, and I pass in Ontario, he somehow has to come and help liquidate my house. So there is that aspect of it as well that a lot of us don't really consider. Even time off work, because he's 7 years younger than I am, he may still be working to some capacity. So that's also just two pieces of the puzzle that I wanted to add in further to some of the questions that were asked last week. Questions on that? Generic questions, might I say.
Okay, so Eileen says, I live in Ontario. My son, the executor, lives in Quebec. The will was written in Ontario. Is there going to be problems?
The only thing, it depends on what the will contains within it, right? Because Quebec has different laws, and if your son lives in Quebec, it will be applicable from a taxation perspective. When I say that, I mean specifically if you have registered accounts here, from a rollover perspective to him, there might be a different tax law established. So what I would recommend doing is absolutely, I can get you more information if you want to have a quick phone call about that, or chat with your lawyer. That would be the best, because they would have knowledge of the laws specifically in Quebec versus here.
But the taxes would be the only problem.
That's the tax implication, the
Well,
possible tax implication. Yeah.
Then that's his problem, right?
Yeah, technically it would be his problem at that point. Yeah, but it could affect the inheritance side of things to him and to other people named in the will.
So somebody else says, I have insurance in Canada for my grandchildren living in the Caribbean. Can they be paid?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Jurisdiction in that respect, because they're beneficiaries of the insurance policy, it will be paid. Now there may be a delay in payment. Logistically, there might be some things to finagle, but from a insurance carriers don't look at that when they're looking. They don't look at where you're traveling, because they appreciate that some of us are snowbirds. Well, if we're snowbirds, and if I'm in my Costa Rican home and I pass away, I am a resident of Canada, and I have legally entered into an agreement in Canada with my insurance carrier.
Right.
Okay.
Get it. Lulu, is this question to do with this, or this is just a question you want to ask at the end? Because I'm a little confused what you're trying to say there. She's asking about the balance of property tax and credit cards amounts to be deducted from the total.
Let's take a look at that. We'll hold that question, because that's
Okay.
part
Okay,
of-
Thank you.
later.
Yeah.
Okay,
You're
yep.
Yeah, you're
Okay,
welcome.
no problem.
Yeah.
All right, we'll
So-
wait till we'll put a pin in that. Okay.
Exactly. So one thing I wanted to also just kind of bring to your attention, and again, we can get further details as needed, is the fact that even within Canada, some provinces request or require what they call a security bond if your executor resides out of province. In this case, of course, Ontario is one of those provinces that do request that. The reason being is because, for various reasons why I'm here today to educate you, is there's been a lot of misadministration from an executor's perspective when they're administering the final details for the estate, where that deceased person lives in a different province. And they want to avoid that, because it can it can be quite costly, and be a lot of upset from a inheritance and beneficiary perspective. So they try and mitigate that. Now, there are some you as the person, i.e. testator, who's creating the will, can put in the will that you would like that bond to be waived. But at the end of the day, whoever, whichever judge is looking at the paperwork, once we've passed, it's up to their discretion. So it's not guaranteed. And I think, yeah, that's what I say here. And it's called many different: judiciary bond, probate bond, estate bond. And some provinces don't require that. Ontario does. I know there's going to be questions about that, so let me know. You can email me separately about that, depending on your situation. Okay. All right. So let's get out of that one. So that was my end of the that part of the show, if you will. I would like to start with, can you guys still see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I've started this. Now, for the sake of time, I really didn't want us to keep waiting and going through this entire 15-page, 16-page document. So I thought I'd pick out a couple of pieces. Really, at the end of the day, as I highlighted before, it's just to get you guys started and start considering and communicating. So if we could all go to page 2, please. And I'll zoom in mine so that you guys can see. So on this page 2, really take a couple of moments to jot down in the name and relationship to you section some of your next of kin. I'll give you guys a couple moments. I've put in my brother. And I've filled in my name at the bottom left and the date I've started working on this. For today's example, I put today. Don't worry about the phone number, the address. From a time perspective, you can always go back and fill that in, or you should go back and fill that in. But I just wanted to kind of get your brain thinking a little bit. And even if you have a will, this is such a great document to have as a package, so that even if you can't necessarily give a copy of the will to a loved one or next of kin, everything is central. This could be in your home safe. This is keep it on your person, so that everything is all together and you have something to refer back to if and when you ever need to update your will or communicate when you're having those conversations with your next of kin and beneficiaries. Jen, I'm so sorry, I can't see anything. So if I can proceed to the next one, if everyone.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, we're good. Okay.
Yep. If anybody's having problems, just put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and let us know. But as far as I know, I think we're good. Can you just make yours? Can you just make it a little bit bigger?
Yeah.
Your screen. There we
Is
go.
that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
And do you mind putting it into full screen? So just go up to the top there by the X. There we go. Yep.
Yeah, but see
Oh.
then.
Okay, never mind. That's probably as big as it's gonna go. No worries.
I can do this. Does that
Yeah,
help?
that's actually better. Yes, perfect.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to head to we're going to skip over page 3 for now. And we're going to go to page 4. And just quick down and dirty. Do you have a power of attorney for finances? Click yes or no. If it's a yes, roughly, if you remember where they kept, my recommendation, power of attorney and wills. Sorry. I thought somebody said something.
Yep.
My recommendation would be to have it in a couple of different places. So in my case, my financial advisor is me. I have a copy scanned and in my electronic files. We have one at the lawyer's office, and we also have a physical copy in the house safe. Then we can, to the right of that immediately is, do you have a will? Yes or no? If it's a yes, where is it located? And then just below that, the the power of attorney for personal care and health. Just yes, I have one, no, I don't, and if yes, where is it kept?
Can you scroll down just a little bit? Because like we can't see that other part. Yeah. There we go.
Perfect. So this area here, yes, where is it kept? I'm going to fill it in with you. And give you a couple more seconds for that. Do we need more time?
I think we're okay. Can the power of attorney, Exeter, and financial advisor all be the same thing? Can it be my daughter?
So if your if your daughter is a licensed advisor, then it could get a little sticky. I know that working where I work, there's a conflict of interest because I'm the holder of the accounts, but I'm also the executor. It is possible. Is it recommended? No. But your power of attorney of finances and your power of attorney of healthcare can be the same person. And that person can also be your executor. Does that
Can
help?
I ask a quick question to do with all of these? Do I gather that something like the power of attorney or all of these big documents, they don't have to be on the computer itself, right? The whole thing.
No. As long as you have, we can be old school. We can keep paper copies. They just have to be legible.
Okay.
And depending on how your lawyer interacts with you, which is another reason why it's a good idea to have a lawyer somewhat local to you, because if you have a lawyer out west, you're going to have to mail things and it's going to be hard to.
Okay, I'm working on that.
I know.
So this thing is more, Trudy, wouldn't you say this is more of like a first thing that people will go to find out where everything is?
Yes, this is your Bible.
Right.
And your repository of your life in pages, but factual life. So this isn't like I feel like, this is where are things placed.
Right.
So that in an event something should happen, this is the document everyone would go to. You would, when you're having the communication part of it with your family, listen guys, again, this is at your discretion. You can share specific pages with them or not. Up to you, because it will get more detailed as to who does what. And you may not at that time want everybody to know about it at that time because you're preparing, right? All right, let's go to page 5. Scroll. Oh, there we go. There we go. So this part here, have you informed your doctor? I don't know how applicable that might be. Everybody's situation is different. For me, it's next of kin and my living will representative, which could be the same person, but my living will representative in this case right now is my husband, because he is going to, I don't know if he'll surpass me, but he'll supersede me, but my next of kin is my brother. So they could be two different people. They could be the same person. Funeral arrangements. Have you made funeral arrangements? Take this wording as final services arrangement. So have I made arrangements? Yes. For the sake of this exercise right now, just write down the funeral home. And if you have the telephone number, if not, don't worry about it. This is really for you personally. You can go back and fill that in. For the sake of time right now, I don't think it's needed that we fill out. Do you own a cemetery plot? Have you, like, that's very specific. You might actually have to go back if you have pre-planning arrangements. You might have to go back to those original documents that you signed and transfer some of that data, in which case this is a very appropriate spot in notes to put, go back to yellow file that or yellow file in front entry closet, whatever you want to put there so that it triggers you to remember to go put that stuff back. Questions? I do, just to that point too, I have seen in my experience, it's a really good suggestion and recommendation if you haven't made arrangements for yourself, or at least put them on a piece of paper and outline them for your loved ones, I do recommend doing that, because we've all experienced loss, and then to have to deal with the grief and the loss and then make these arrangements, we know it's a nightmare. I don't know if anybody has lived through it. It's definitely the furthest thing from your mind. And I do find when people are in grief, some people just kind of retract, and then some have no choice but to take over. So it is a good idea. I do work very closely. If you're in Ontario, in the Durham region, I do work closely with a few different, I guess, centers, if you will. So I'm happy to provide an introduction to my contacts there if that's something that you're interested in. All right. So now let's move to page 8, please. And this as a financial, this page as a financial advisor is one of the key things that I look at, because of the income versus expenses versus debt. So there's that question as to, from a debt perspective, what do we need to put down? Again, for the sake of time right now, the rent or mortgage payment, just put in the amount. We all know roughly what that looks like. And if you remember if you know the lender, great. Don't worry about the due date right now, or the address and the town. That's a lot of information. And then this is probably where you may need a little bit more time, but the outstanding consumer debt, so to speak. So the amount and the lender. And for now, just like for today's presentation, just list amount. I have a line of credit, 15,000. It's tied to TD Bank. I have a car loan, whatever the case is. Just put that in.
If it's just credit, you always have credit card. Shouldn't you put the credit card in there too, with the number and the information? I don't have any debts other than that.
Oh, good for you, girl.
Yeah. Well, I'm 84. I can't.
Right. So lender, I would put, if it's a BMO card or Canadian Tire card, I would put that. And then amount, you might want to put in paid off every month.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And then make a little note somewhere on there saying, maybe you might even want to attach a copy of any copy really of a credit card statement, because it'll have the account number on there.
Oh, okay.
And their address. So you don't necessarily need to fill that in.
That's helpful. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So Trudy, Marie is saying she can't put this amounts in for some reason on this page. I'm not sure why. Let me see if that works for you.
Are we putting in like a dollar sign? It may not take in decimal. No, it takes in decimals for me. I wonder if it's the version of Acrobat Reader you have. Is everybody else able to input it in?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Marie, if you update your Acrobat Reader, that's probably the problem. And it's free. You just have to Google Acrobat Reader update, and you can download it.
And I mean, at the end of the I'm so old school. I actually print mine off and fill it in.
You could just print it off too, Marie, if it's easier.
Yeah, if it's easier.
Because it's just a document for you to have all your stuff in, so people know where everything is.
And you, right?
And you. Yeah, exactly.
And this is a great, honestly, guys, this is a really great exercise to do with your children. So to give it to them, give them a copy as well. So when I have a conversation, when we start initiating conversations of estate planning and how we want the inheritance to pass through, so intergenerational wealth transfer, the first conversation or discussion does involve the beneficiaries or the next of kin, so that they understand roles. And I also, as the advisor, it's really cool because I can act as a mediator. So sometimes it's a difficult conversation for us to initiate. We all as children of parents don't want our parents to think, we don't want to think of them as being mortal. So it's a hard conversation to have. And as a good advisor, you can have that good advisor can take somewhat that pressure off of you and say, okay, this is how I tell my clients, okay, so we're here today because this is important. We have some estate matters. We want to start the discussions. I'd really like you to be involved because your parents or whoever has requested that you be a part of it in to some capacity. So in terms of having them, also your kids, do this at an earlier age, it's also very beneficial because then it does get them thinking, especially if they have assets, especially if they have children. It's a good, you could be that superwoman or superman, right?
Is it hard to cancel your credit cards? Well, say, if I drop dead, can my kids just call the credit card company?
If they're in province, yes. Out of province, there may be, depending on the lender, they may have some issues with that. So
No, they're in.
Sorry?
They're here.
Oh, perfect. You'll be fine.
To me. So, and if you've got a credit on your account, like I generally have a credit on all my credit cards, just for the sake of
They
having
send you a
it.
check.
Yeah, thank you.
It's on the check. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right, so let's move to page 9. Oops, why did I just do that there? And again, for simplicity reasons, life insurance, the company, is it Canada Life, Manulife, Great West Life, Empire Life, whatever, and then your beneficiaries. The location of the policy and the policy number you can absolutely get when it's a more convenient time for you. Because this takes some, I understand this takes some bandwidth. It's a different energy that's required to get all of these documents and gathering, or even if you have them, to go through them and put them in here. So I can appreciate that. So from the life insurance side, then there's a long-term care, which is part of the living part of the estate planning. So what's going to happen if I can no longer support myself? So then POA power of attorney might kick in at this time, but at least it's here in this document. I'm going to scroll down just so that you guys can see. I don't really think right now out of province travel insurance is needed for this exercise today. However, if you're a snowbird, it's definitely something I would add in, because a lot, and here's the thing, I was one of the companies or one of the funeral homes that I work closely with is De Stefano Funeral Homes in Oshawa. And they have a lovely product that it's considered an insurance solution that if by chance you're a snowbird and God forbid something happens and you pass outside of the country, that insurance covers you to come back and the person traveling with you to come back. And you know it could be costly at that time. And I do believe a portion of the ticket, the flight to come back, is also covered in that insurance policy. So that is something to consider as well. If you're not so much of a snowbird, maybe not as important, but again, it depends on your situation. And then we're going to go to investment side of it. So again, name of the fund, is it an RSP right now, a non-registered, a TFSA, so a tax-free savings account, a bank account? Put all of this, put those in, and the advisor's name. So if it is at Edward Jones, for example, put Edward Jones and the person is Tamara who looks after it. And you can fill in the nitty-gritty stuff at your leisure. And then registered owner is basically, is it yourself and is there a joint owner? So in the situation of an open or non-registered account, you can actually hold that with another individual. Maybe it's a child or a sibling. or whoever. Put both of them on there under the where you're populating registered owner. I'll give you guys a few seconds to do that. I know this is not sexy, guys. I'm sorry.
I think it's great that we're just trying to, it's just
It's
something you
great.
look up, you don't know how to do it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's great, but it's also very depressing.
absolutely.
And this is it, right? But I mean, you're doing this for someone else at the end of the day. And that someone else is assumingly someone you actually care about and making their life easier. So as a person who wants to make people's lives easier, I think that it's a great opportunity. And because it's so daunting, we don't do it. So we tend to push it away, push it aside. But listen, I have clients that still push it aside, and I have to physically say, okay, nope, we're having a meeting. We're going to take 30 minutes of that meeting and we're going to work on 1 page right now or 2 pages. And I think that's how you would time block it for yourself. It doesn't have to be a whole afternoon on a weekend to do it, or just take a couple of hours and say, okay, let me just do this one part of this, the paperwork. Because I'll tell you, if you're adding a codicil to your will, or if you're creating a will, the lawyer's going to ask for this of you anyway. So
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Time block it, kind of like when we did a whole series on decluttering. And she said, just start a timer for 15 minutes, put on some music. Well, maybe don't put on the music for this, but you're just going to do it for 15 minutes. So nothing can, you can do it for 15 minutes and then do something else.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And then to continue this part of it on page 11, if you want to right now, you can certainly start filling in, if you have a registered account, so an RSP, what the carrier's name is. Maybe it's held with IG or it's at Scotia. The securities and stocks, I would leave that for later because that's a little bit more detailed. I'm just scrolling down so you guys can see it. Oh, I think I scrolled it down too much. And then I think at that point, there's on page 12, it just has the different types of registered accounts. It has maybe you have a tax-free savings account or an RESP, so a registered education savings plan for grandchildren. That's also something that's of importance. Maybe you have an RDSP, which is the equivalent of an RRSP for someone who's, according to CRA, has some capacity is disabled. And again, yes, no, and then for now, the carrier name would suffice. And that will also trigger you to pay attention on those. Maybe you want to do those pages first and complete them at your leisure, and then work on the ones that we don't necessarily go over today.
Before that, you mentioned pension. Just before the TFSA, there was like pension. Like, what if you worked abroad for a lot of years and you have pension abroad, but you also have pension here in Canada? How does that work?
So I
How
would
do you feel that?
So I would add it in. So where it has, so here is, are you a member of a deferred profit sharing plan? What I would do is cross out the deferred profit sharing plan, which is a pension type of situation. Just cross it out and write Bermuda pension or pension from the UK, or I have a couple of clients that have, well, one has a Bermuda pension, the other one has a pension from Turks and Caicos. So they write it in, carrier name, and then if you also, like we did with the credit card statement, you might want to include a copy of that, the last statement you received, so it has their address and everything on it. And then you should be, there's my Zoom share. How do I stop share there? So,
Can I ask a question, Trudy? Because you said to take off the BPSP and put pension from whatever, from any country that's not, let's say, Canada. But it says there on the line, profit sharing or whatever. What is that?
so
I'm
profit,
looking at that line. What has that to do with pension from
it's
foreign
just,
pension?
so it's a little bit more detailed. It doesn't apply to pensions per se. It's just a space that you can put the information right now. It doesn't mean that, and it's for, again, your information. That's why I said cross it off and just maybe include the statement. It's just a space to add that information that's an outside pension. A profit sharing in this case is if you worked for, I don't know, Rogers. So Rogers would give you a pension, but then they also have an option for employees to opt into their profit sharing plan. That's where that information would be held. Because you would also have, in addition to your pension, profit sharing or stocks that they give you an opportunity to invest into their shares. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So Maria just wants to remind everybody to put your computer password somewhere that people can see
Oh,
them.
that's a very good one.
Yeah.
And phone for that matter. Let's take it one step further.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people have their Apple ID, then they have their email ID. And sometimes we can't remember them all and we try all the whole bunch of different ways. So try to remember what they really are and then write them down somewhere. So even if you're using one of those electronic password holders, they still need a password to get into the password. So I know everybody's got a little book, but I see my parents have a book, but they've scratched out 100 of them and put,
Yeah.
so make sure you know which ones are which.
Which are applicable.
Exactly. So thank you, Maria, for reminding everybody for that. And you could even put that in that file where you're ever going to put that, where you can put all that information in there as well. And she also just said that because she works with photo and document management, and she says people have their photos, they'll have some photos on their phone, some photos on their iPad, some photos on their computer. So try to amalgamate them all, I would imagine. So that if people want those photos, they can find them.
If I would also be inclined, as if there is someone that, I mean, you could do with this on your own as well. I would be happy to send out to whomever binders if you want to put it all together, or you can go to the dollar store and grab it. That's up to you, but just let me know, because the more you have in one spot, the better, and the easier it is to find when you need it. I was gonna actually add in, it just came to me, an area where it has the financial commitments is probably where you might make most sense to put it. So on page 8, I'm just gonna do a quick double check here. Bear with me. Yes, on page 8, I would also just write utilities on there, and then you can add in your utilities as well. So Rogers, TELUS, your cell phone, maybe add that in on that page as well, because those are the details that the executor would need, because they would be the ones responsible for contacting them to close the accounts.
Right.
I know that was a nightmare from personal experience growing up. When I was, I guess, in my early 20s, my aunt passed away and she had nothing. And so I had to go scrounging, which was already hard in her apartment, to have to find all that information. And it's not something you want people, your loved ones, to go through. Speaking from experience, it's too hard as it is to walk into the place that you had memories with them.
Yeah. And Maria just says yes to binders. Okay, so everybody go get a binder, or Trudy will give you one. So let's see. Do you know anything about the online wills? People are asking about that.
So if it's, I'm trying to be tactful here. If it's the only thing that you could do at this point in time, absolutely, sure. It's also AI based, so it's not going to take into consideration or ask you specific questions about your personal situation, so that you might or may not have considered. I always recommend you get what you pay for. What happens in the event that that changes, then what do you have to do? Like, it's such a sticky line for me. I'd almost say I'd rather you write out something. And that's how I tell clients, write something out. And when you get a chance, then go to the lawyer. At least there's something on paper. They don't like, they're good in a basic sense of the form, but again, they don't ask you the right questions that a good lawyer would. So I don't know if that isn't even an answer. It's not something I would recommend doing. Maybe that's how I'll put it there.
Okay. All right. So if that's the only thing you can do, do it. But if you can do other things, you should probably do that. Is what the advice is.
Yes.
So I'm just seeing if there's anything
Oh,
else
I
that we
guess I
had.
did.
So Lulu, did she answer your question about the balance of property tax and credit card amounts be deducted from the
Yeah,
total?
that have been answered. This
Okay, good.
is really so complicated. All of it is so complicated.
Piece by
But
piece,
I'm
my
okay.
dear.
I'll make sense of it. When my dad died, he didn't have a will, and things were so easy because it was 5 of us, and my sister took care of him. And so we told my sister, "No, you do what you want to do, and that's it." And she took the reins, and she took care. We went for the funeral, and she took. That's, I guess it's how brothers and sisters sometimes think. We thought she's the one that spent 15 years taking care of him, so she should be the one making the decisions. And everything went so easy. There was no headaches. And then I look at these documents and I listen to you and I go like, oh my God. But I thank you so much for taking your time and doing this. Thank you, Jen.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
because I'm really impressed.
Oh, thank you. You are the unicorn. You and your family are the unicorn. If everything went pleasantly, you would be surprised and shocked at the nightmares that even I work with the lawyers in dealing with. As soon as, you wouldn't think, but as soon as people see the word inheritance and estate, the character shift that comes out is insane. And you're very, I mean, obviously that attests to your character, as you know what, you took care of dad for so long that rightfully that he would want you to have that. That's very good. I'm going to say 80% of the families don't do that. I hope that I'm wrong on this in this community right now, but it's challenging. Yes, I do have some lawyers that I work with. One of them is Laredo Law. So what I'll do is, if you want, Jen, when I'm attaching the presentation, I'll give a couple of lawyers. I personally find more success if I make personal introductions. I know that there's some of you on the call that's our next plan, is to get those personal introductions, and then they know who I am, obviously, and they'll, not that they'll treat you differently, but there's an instant connection there. And I know that you guys are being looked after. But again, happy to provide some lawyers that I've worked with, clients have worked with, and have had minimal issues. I did see, oh yes, that's the cost. That's it. So costs range. So if it's just a simple will, and when I say simple, meaning single person will with no extensive corporations, trusts, or anything of that nature, it can range anywhere. Well, now everything with inflation, between 5 to 657, and that's on the high end. Like 657 is high. It shouldn't cost more than that. Anything that tends to be a little bit more complicated. So if you have properties extra, like outside of international properties, or a corporation that also needs to be included into that, it can run you just under $1,000 for a good, solid will that is robust. But
Okay,
again,
so-
that's a cost. And to be honest, if you have a corporation or you're a part shareholder of a corporation collecting dividends right now, that could very well be, which is where you can come in, part of an expense. Just saying.
Exactly. So yeah, I will include that with the presentation, and you can also email Trudy, which I put in the chat. If you want to just email her, I'm sure she'd be happy to point you towards lawyers.
Of course.
And nope,
Yeah, so a simple will
around, I'm
probably
sure
will
there's
run
also-
you
yeah.
between 5 and 7.
Yeah.
My husband and I, we did a joint will, so that was a few years ago, so that was about 7 and change.
Okay.
Mhm.
This is just how much money can be given to children without tax problems?
So that's a loaded question
Yeah.
because it depends on how the money is held. If it's in your bank account and they're joint bank owner on your account, there's no tax implication.
Right.
If it's in a registered account, i.e. a RIF, at this point, like a retirement income fund or an RSP, there is a tax implication on that, right? So I think it would, how can I receive hard copy as printer isn't working? David is asking if he could have a copy. Do you have a printer, David? You can take yourself off mute.
His printer isn't working, he says.
Oh, his print. So what I'll do is, whereabouts are you, David? Are you in Ontario? Are you in Canada?
David, if you send me your address, I'll send it on to Trudy and she'll send you a copy.
I'm in Ontario.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So yeah,
And just send us your address and we'll send you a hard copy.
yeah. If you want to
Okay.
send me an email, David, and CC Jen on it, and with your email, with your mailing address, I'll get one out to you next week.
Yeah, okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, that's
No problem.
her email there, David. That's good. See what
So
so I think we answered but the sort of the middle costs for both lawyers, for couples and for singles. She does have a list of recommended lawyers that she's going to pass on. I think we counted that. I'm just going through all the questions. Any other questions, guys? For Trudy? Oh, Veronica, you got your hand up. What's up?
I have a comment. My mother passed away last year and
Oh,
she
I'm so
was everything organized. So the funeral plot, the funeral home, everything. And even like when we went to the funeral, our hotel costs were paid for, all our meals were paid for, everything. And, you know, my brother's sorting out the papers and all this stuff. And it's like, she even had what song she wanted to have sung at her funeral and everything. And it's like, you know, we didn't have to hassle through it all. And our family works very well together. And it's the best gift you could give to your family. That's what I want to say.
It really is. So oh, there was another hand up.
Yes, I think it's mine, Teresa.
Lourdes? Yes.
Teresa?
Lourdes?
Can I just fill out this document and just take everything out that doesn't apply to me and take it to a lawyer?
Yeah, that's probably what they'll have, their own version of the checklist, but yeah, that's the whole point of exactly.
Oh, okay, thank you.
There's other things you're gonna have to add in, but for the most part, from a factual basis, this is pretty much an all-inclusive document that you can take anywhere. Is there a Teresa, so cute with that. A personal story. So I had explained last week that I had experienced an unexpected loss around Christmas time last year, was my sister-in-law. So her family and my family, as you can imagine, we had to come together and it was very difficult. There was times where it was very difficult to make certain decisions when it came to, as to Veronica saying, the funeral arrangements, music, programs, like the food, like the time. It was a very stressful situation that everybody endured. But why do that, right? Why make that, if you can avoid that, then at least we know. Because I know for me, I was thinking, oh my God, what does Chantel, what would Chantel want? What would Chantel want? Let's just take the guesswork right out of it.
Yeah. It's really quite the gift that keeps on giving.
So we
literally.
have 5 more minutes. I'm mindful of time this time around. Is there another?
Okay. So, I missed last week. Did you talk about the difference between private and public wills?
So I did not. We could get into that if you want. Send me an email and I can definitely have a quick phone call. Well, not a quick, but I can have a phone call with you to discuss. I didn't really go in too much in terms of depth of types of wills. I wanted more of a bird's eye view of different components of the estate plan. I would like your feedback right now, guys. So there's a couple of things. If you want to, I do have a website. If you want to follow me, you're more than welcome to. It has every week I post different things. Lately, it's been about the estate planning. But I would love your feedback. How did you find this exercise? Because full transparency is the first time I've ever done a working worksheet with anyone that's not a non-client. How did you find this? Did you find it valuable and useful?
Yes.
Okay, good. Ah, thank you. Thank you. Perfect.
The website, the IG website, is that the one you want me to share, Trudy?
Yeah, I can give, yeah, and then it just look for,
It says advisor.investorgroup.com, that one?
are we all on social media? Because my Facebook page is significantly more,
Okay.
not everybody, no.
Okay,
Okay,
well, I'll put the website and then I'll put
perfect,
your
yes.
Facebook.
And then you guys, yes. I'm happy, listen, I'm not here, I want to just educate everyone. Love is tremendous. Yeah, you're right, Marie.
Now, I have a question too. Would you want to see Trudy back again? And what sort of things would you want her to talk about that she hasn't covered already?
100%. Yes, yes, I love it.
We're so overwhelmed, we can't think of anything else.
That's okay. There's a lot of information. Yes, Florence.
I would say that this was very comprehensive, having gone through this process myself in terms of planning and getting my will together and the pre-planning elements of it and so on. So I would say that it's worked very well. It's like a review, but I'm at the point now where I have to do some revisions. So this exercise sort of helps me into thinking, okay, what changes do I need to make? My grandkids are much older now, things like that. So it was like a refresher for me. But certainly this exercise, it's a very comprehensive worksheet.
Perfect. Thank you for the feedback and the input. Appreciate it.
And having it online means you can go in and change it as many times as you want, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And print multiple copies.
Is it safe to send to someone on, through email, or do we need to somehow have a
because you're not encrypting, it might not be something I'd want to send unless you can encrypt it, because there's personal information in there, right? Your social insurance number, I believe, is on there, account numbers.
I have a suggestion.
Go ahead.
Is to put it in a USB.
Yep. And then
That way it's not,
Oh.
yes, and then give it to the person and then change it, updating.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of having to send it though.
Well, how far away is this person?
It could be anywhere from in the same city to other end of the country to outside the country.
You could have it as registered mail if you
Yeah, that's true. Print it
And
print
have
it out,
insurance
and
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, USB is safer than put it on a computer.
So yes, okay, so we're getting to that the o'clock hour there. I really appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you so much. I hope to see you guys again. Even though I specialize in the estate and will planning, I am more than happy to come back at any point in time to talk about from a wealth building, anything surrounding that. Feel free to reach out to Jen, and I'll do my best to accommodate as much as I can.
Thank you so
much, Trudy.
God bless all of you.
What is the name of the professional that gives advice on estate planning? Isn't that you?
Yeah, financial advisor.
Yeah.
It's a team. It's actually the professionals is a team.
Okay.
It should be a strong accountant, lawyer, and financial advisor.
Right.
Because with the three of them, that's your powerhouse. Because the advisor should be licensed in insurance to provide you with final expenses and estate planning solutions if needed. The advisor is basically the advisor is the hub, putting it all together, and will incorporate strategies because they know you the best of all. They're supposed to be talking to you and see you at least more than once a year. And then the accountant is the tax side of it as well.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we have to let Trudy go. I know people are still putting questions in there. So why don't you email Trudy? I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you guys.
100%.
And maybe when you're going through the worksheet too, if you have any questions, you can email her. If you lose her email or don't know her contact, just reply to any of your Art Your Service emails and I will send it along to you.
Perfect.
And thank you so much, Trudy. And I see lots of people want to have you back for other things. So we'll chit chat and have you back for sure.
Sounds like a plan, Stan.
Okay. Thanks, Trudy.
Have
Thanks
a great
everybody for
day.
joining us. We'll talk to
Take
you later.
care.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.